Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and today we're going to look at my old Delta bandsaw. I'm really packed in here. I've got stuff behind me, I've got stuff over there, stuff of my wife's we're trying to sell out of her classroom. She doesn't need any longer, and it's all packed in here for a while. But the bandsaw is an old Delta bandsaw, and I've shown it before, but I had a couple guys that wanted to know how I changed out my dust port from the one that comes on here. This is flips up and down so you can get your blade in here, and then this flips up over the blade. Well, it just didn't seem to suck up the dust like it should. And one thing is it's got such a small opening. So I went to a piece of 4-inch, and my 4-inch dust hose fits right over it, and you put a clamp on it. No problem. This material, excuse me, the material is exhaust pipe for a semi. We have a place here in Michigan, in Muskegon, where they fix semis. It's St. John's Trucking, and they've got a bin that they throw short pieces into, because most of the semis, they need long runs on their exhaust systems. So the short pieces don't do them much good, but they do sell them. The last piece I bought was about 4.5 feet long. I just take it to work, cut it off on the big bandsaw, flip it around. I cut this in on a 45, just in case I ever do want to tip my table, which on this saw I never do. I use my old Craftsman if I want to tip the table. Now originally, I've done this so long ago, I just totally forgot how I put this on here until I tore it apart just now. But I didn't use the original hole. I drilled and tapped 2 on the side that matches this plate that I welded onto the side of here. But to bolt that on solid, it interferes with my adjustment for my blade. So I made up a plate with the matching holes in it. This hole just screws it on down below. I used a flathead screw because the bottom edge of this thing lands right where that screw is. So I put a flathead in it to get it out of the way. And you just screw that on here. This lines up with the next hole, and that is spaced out with a 1/4-20 nut. I drilled the holes out because I'm using a 1/4-20 nut and I want it to slip through freely. If you want to, you could stack up 4 or 5 washers, would probably do the same thing. And the top hole, it just bolts in up here freely and it doesn't affect anything. But that's all I did to it, and it mounted up pretty easy. I had a little messing around to do to get the figure out where to drill the holes, but once you get this pipe made up, you weld your plate in here, and I just held it up there and dotted it with a magic marker, and it's nothing fussy. But with that bigger diameter, you get more airflow going through, more volume, and it sucks up the dust better than this little one does. Now I have seen guys, they will take and drill their doors down here at the bottom or over here in this side and just plug in a vacuum. But you're limited on how much airflow you're going to get through a 2.5-inch hose compared to a 4-inch hose. So that's about it. That's all I did. It was pretty simple to do. the bearings that I put on the back of the saw for the elevation screw, I'm sitting over here. I have 5 of these left, and they're ready to go. Everything's in there. All you have to do is mark your frame where your elevation screw comes down and touches, and drill a 1/4 inch hole in there. And the pin on the end of this, bearing goes in that 1/4 inch hole. And then the screw comes down and lands into a pocket that I put on the top of the bearing. They work great, especially if you're going to go to the heavy duty spring that you really want if you're going to be cutting large diameters of logs or larger boards. With this lift block in here, I have the capability now between the two to cut 12 inches. To cut some hardwoods 12 inch, you want a heavier spring. And do you need the bearing? Not really, but you have to be careful, because when you're turning the elevation screw, it doesn't ride on anything in that frame. It's where the frame comes down and it's looped out. It just rides down in the bottom of that loop, and mine actually started walking around and it bent. And I had to take it out and try to straighten it, and that's when I came up with the idea of the bearings. Someplace the screw had to go so it couldn't walk around or move. They really do work great. I've got 5 left. I sell them for $25, and that covers the postage mailed anywhere in the United States. If you're in Canada, it's another $10 to get it into Canada. And I just sent one out there last week sometime. So that's it. Short, sweet. I hope it's helped you a little bit. If not, send me an email and I'll try to walk you through it. Until next time, work safe, have fun, and I'll talk to you later. So long.